Hello and welcome. This is John Bloom of Bloom Consulting. In this video, we're going to talk about SQL Server reporting services. And if you remember in our previous videos, we talked about SQL Server tables, views, stored procedures, and this is the fourth in the series. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, what we do is we go ahead and create a project within SQL Server development tool, and this is what it looks like when it opens. I happen to have Visual Studio 2010 shell, and what we'll do is go ahead and click on New Project. From there, we'll click on Report Server Project, and then we'll go ahead and name it. In this case, I'll go ahead and say Bloom Consulting Demo 1, and we'll go ahead and create a directory for the solution so that all the artifacts get consolidated in the same folder, and we'll go ahead and say OK. We'll let it do its thing, and in a moment, we should have a shell of a project. So let's see what happens. All right, there's our shell. And what I'd like to do first is to go ahead and create a what's known as a shared data source. So what I'll do is I'll right click and I'll say add a new item. And in this case, it'll be a data source, and we'll name it appropriately. Okay, we went ahead and named it and clicked add. And from here, we are prompted to name it again. Now, we'd like to go ahead and connect to our Microsoft SQL Server, which resides locally on this laptop. So we'll click on that. Now, we could click on the dot, or we could click this drop-down menu. However, if we do, it's going to take a minute. So in the meantime, what I'd like to do is to go ahead and open my SQL Server, and then click on Connect Database, and then that way I don't have to type it. So what we'll do is we'll plug that in here, and then we'll click on our database. In our case, we've already created a stored procedure in our last video connecting to our AdventureWorks Data Warehouse 2012. Click on that, click Test Connect. And what that does is it connects using our existing credentials, which is on my local laptop based on the domain, and it accepts the credentials, and we'll go ahead and click OK, and click OK, and guess what? We now have a connection. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and click Save often. There's many instances in the world of a programmer where you spend an entire day losing your work because you didn't click that Save button. It's happened to me. It's happened to everyone. So click Save often. Now what we'd like to do is go ahead and create a report, because what's a reporting service without a report? So in our case, we're going to create Add New Item. Now you can see you could click here Add New Report, but I'm just accustomed to clicking New Item. And anyway, we'll go ahead and click on Report. And we'll name this appropriately, and I'll say Bloom Consulting Demo. Keep it consistent, and we'll go ahead and click the Add button. What that'll do, it'll create an RGL file, which will appear in my folder here, and then it'll be a shell. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create our connection, link it to the report, and from there we'll tell it to use our stored procedure, and from there we'll enter our parameters. And let's go ahead and get started. It looks like it's almost done rendering, and what we'll do is we'll just double click on this RDL file, perhaps, maybe not. I need to invest in some technology, perhaps, that's within the last 5 years in order to do these demos, perhaps. But anyway, we'll just deal with what we got, I guess. Story of life. So anyway, as we continue, this is our shell of a report, and we'll go ahead and add our data source. We'll call it Bloom Consulting Connection, and then we use our shared one, and there it is. Bada bing. Click OK. Now we have a connection. I'll click Save again because I have a compulsion to save my work. And then next, what I'd like to do is go ahead and create a data set. Now, a data set is going to be your query to pull against your connection. So what we do is we name the data set. In this case, if I remember correctly, I think it was internet sales was the thing that we created. So anyway, this will be a data set embedded within my report. So our data sources we've already created. We'll just click the drop down. If there were more than one connection, you can select the appropriate one. We're going to actually select on our stored procedure. And how do I know that? Because in our previous demo, we went ahead and created a stored procedure. And this is the name of it right here. So hopefully, from our project, we'll see what options there are. and refresh the fields, and what that'll do, it'll populate the fields over here, like so. And those are the same fields that are in the store procedure. And then we should click on parameters, and you'll notice that it picked up the 2 parameters. Now, what we have to do is we have to tell it to use the parameters that don't exist yet, because we haven't created them within our report. So I'll go ahead and click the OK button, and what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and click on our parameters right here, and it looks like it picked them up as integers. You can set the available values, the default values, and then the advanced. So that's good. And then what we'll do is we'll come back to our data set, go back to parameters, and guess what? It picked them up automatically. So we're all hooked up, ready to go. And what's next? Well, we probably need some fields on our report. And one way to do that is to click on your View toolbar, and then you have the option of matrix or table. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select the table. So we just plop it down there, and then we adjust it accordingly over here perhaps. And then you have the option of selecting from the drop down. That's fine with me. So we'll go ahead and select a few fields just as a demo, right? And then perhaps maybe a text box. Go back to our toolbar, and maybe a text box here. We'll say adjust it maybe, and then drag it over here, and then we'll just go ahead and double click in there and say Bloom Consulting Demo Report 1. So that's fine. I'll go ahead and save it and click the preview button, and what it's doing, it's initiating a call to the store procedure, and then it's going to validate that it's compiled and that it's available, and then basically it's attempting to preview, and there we are. So what you'll notice is that it prompted us for the 2 parameters which are located here. If you remember from our last video, we didn't store these as dates. We stored them as ints, just for simplicity's sake. So we'll have to duplicate that logic here. So if I remember, it was 2000 to, actually it was 2005, January 2005, 12/31. And then all you got to do is click on View Report. What it's doing, it's passing the parameters to the store procedure, which is local on my laptop. It's calling the store procedure. It's restricting the data set based on the parameters, and it's returning the fields that I selected. And as you can see, there it is. So that's pretty sweet. And then basically you can scroll to the last page, which is nice. And then it has all these export options, which is real nice. Typically, most developers, end users export it to Excel or perhaps PDF. So pretty clean export, where it aligns the columns properly. And you can really be fancy with that. So you say, well, that's nice. We just created our first SSRS report based on a stored procedure in SQL Server. So that's good.